Me again, sorry. Welcome, and thanks for coming back for day 2, obviously. We're going to talk about, obviously, mobile marketing this morning. I've got a fairly illustrious panel here in front of us. And again, one of the things I was bringing up yesterday is it's, you know, in my opening address, we're talking, I mean, this is a mobile payments conference. It says so on the box, right? It's about mobile payments. But frankly, you know, payments aren't broken, really. I mean, you know, payments work fine. You've got, you know, credit cards, debit cards, cash, whatever. But what really does need augmenting and what needs fixing in a lot of respects is the entire retail experience. You know, that's messy. There's a lot of room for improvement in that. And focusing on, you know, the call to action, the you know, getting people into the stores or getting them to shop, and then obviously the data that kind of ties into that as well. So it's kind of cyclical. So again, as I said, an illustrious panel in front of us here. So what I'd like to start with is, you know, obviously introducing Kevin, Alan, and Jack here. And really, I think we'll let them speak for themselves. So starting with Kevin, do you want to give us a quick kind of overview of what Jellyfish is doing?
Sure, I'd love to. So my name is Kevin Berger. I'm head of Jellyfish Online Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency. We do all things digital, paid search, SEO, and everything else. So the reason this is really interesting to me is that so many of our clients see such dramatic increase in the traffic on a mobile perspective, and they're not ready to deal with it yet. They're not addressing the market yet, and they're not. They're sort of waiting for something to happen. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Alan Hames. I'm the founder of a company, Los Angeles-based, called Steps Away, and we've developed a cloud-based platform for national retailers to create and deliver promotional offers to smartphones over guest Wi-Fi networks in shopping centers around the country. We launched about a year ago, and our single objective here is to drive shoppers into the store across the lease line. Proximity-based, they authenticate over a guest Wi-Fi network, and we're working with mall developers, Taubman, General Growth, Starwood, and national retailers and shoppers.
Excellent, thank you. Jack?
Do you have one of your clients calling?
Maybe I want my
You can just take it, don't worry. It's no one knows.
Jack Philbin, co-founder, CEO of Vibes. We are a Chicago-based mobile marketing company, about 130 people. Been in space a long time, clear leader in mobile engagement. Very similar value prop to Alan, but different technologies. So we have a platform called Catapult that we license to national retailers. Sears, Home Depot, Men's Wearhouse, Gap, Old Navy, Banana, Saks. A lot of the big guys are our clients. We manage their push notifications, their text messages, their mobile site creation, not big like, you know, e-commerce sites, but the promotional sites and seasonal, you know, program sites. And what I'll focus on mostly today is a new module in our platform that is Wallet Manager. And so we allow a retailer to create a presence inside Passbook, which is now called Apple Wallet, and Google Wallet. And so we have APIs into Google and Apple. We are light years ahead of the competition. I think it's going to be a really big ecosystem, and I'll talk a lot about how retailers are leveraging mobile wallet today.
Excellent, okay. So what we'll start with again is, I've got a few questions lined up, and again, these are fairly free form. If there's questions from the audience, you know, by all means participate. But I'm going to do my first question is a Cards Against Humanity question, if anyone's familiar with that game. So it's just, let's leave, there's a blank in this sentence. And yeah, so I've got some cards to hand out. No, I'm not going to do that because it's a rude game. What I'm going to ask is, we are on the cusp of blank when it comes to mobile marketing. What are we on the cusp of? Anyone would like to volunteer with the first question here?
I'll
Go for it, Jack.
We're on the cusp of a wallet revolution. I think the wallet ecosystem is probably going to be bigger than the app ecosystem. And I think that for a number of reasons. You've seen a bunch of wallets sort of come and go. There was ISIS that turned into SoftCard, which Google purchased.
Which turned into Google, yes. So.
Yeah, but I think it's worth noting to the audience, for those that aren't aware, Google really got a sweet deal. Google got two primary things, and there's probably some people here who know more about this than me. But Google got Smart Tap technology, which is the ability to transfer via NFC coupon codes and offer codes. So it's not just about the transaction and the payment, but a retailer can participate from a promotional standpoint with loyalty codes and coupon codes. And Apple has announced that as well. The other thing that Google got by buying SoftCard was distribution. So Passbook's on every iPhone in the world. Instantly, you can't delete the app, it's native to the OS. Google didn't have that advantage because they don't have the same vertical control in the Android ecosystem. And so, you know, at least in the US, what they did was they said, hey, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, we'll take this, take this technology, take this company off your hands, but we want distribution. So now Android Pay, which they have recently launched, and Google Wallet are preloaded on Android devices. And so you're going to have that Android base build up just as fast as Apple. And I believe it's always been a two-horse race based on the operating system. If you have an iPhone,
Yeah.
you have an Apple Wallet. If you have Android, you will have Google Wallet. And they've both announced Apple Pay and Android Pay to be able to leverage that. There's a lot, and then, you know, I think a little later on I'll go in why
Sure.
how they're leveraging the EMV liability.
I'd like to come back to that a little bit later because I think, again, from just a technical aspect, obviously you're reliant also on the point of sale infrastructure. It's not just about,
Sure.
you know, Apple or Android. It's about that integration. You know, a payment or, you know, any of this marketing stuff doesn't really work without the retailer buy-in. So obviously it's a bipartite model and you need that connectivity on the merchant side. But that's interesting. Alan, about yourself.
So slightly different. I think we're on
So-
the cusp of the retailers actually controls the content, the promotions, the messaging, to start to think about multi-platform connectivity to shoppers and how they think about, we talk about omni-channel, how they think about messaging in their store, brick and mortar, how they think about it online, how they think about it on mobile, and the different touch points, be it email, text messaging, or pull. We happen to have a bias around rather than texting shoppers pull offers that are relevant to them. And I think one of the challenges here is organizationally, most nationally based retailers are still thinking about how they did things in the old days, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and they haven't started to think about how to put their organizations together. And I think that's what we're on the cusp of. Some of them are starting to say, okay, who actually owns as the chief marketing officer, and how do they integrate store operations, and how do they integrate merchandising, how do they integrate all these elements. And I think they're finally coming to the realization here that their shoppers are touching or interacting in so many different ways. They need a single point of reference and if you will, a single signature to speak to the shoppers, and they're not doing that today. So I think that'll happen in the next 12, 18 months.
Excellent. So Kevin, we're on the cusp of what?
We're in the cusp of the desktop going away. And what I mean by that is if you look at paid search, for example, and you look at any of you who have brands, you'll see that the search queries for mobile are up 50%, 70%, just some astronomical amount, with desktop basically being flat or up a few percent. So the overall marketplace, you know, for so many different industries might be up 5%, 10%. I was in a meeting yesterday with a company, and you know, their marketplace, they sell park benches and, you know, B2B park benches, like, you know, their marketplace is up 25%, but mobile's up 71%. And no one is really taking this seriously. Of course they're taking it seriously, and I mean a little glib, but what they're not doing is, you know, they don't have mobile optimized sites, they don't have that, they don't have responsive sites, they're not looking at this sort of the right way, because it's a really big endeavor. You know, I was talking to a very big 3D copying printer company once, and they were telling us how, and they also have an IT solutions company, and they were telling us how they service sort of the small business to medium-sized business, and they didn't have an optimized website for mobile. If they don't have it, then no one should take them seriously, and gladly we didn't win the business. I'm just kidding, we'd love to have the business. But what my point is that once you actually get people to your site, and once you actually get into the transaction, having some kind of mobile payment is critical to success. Because if you start typing your phone, no one wants to enter in all your information over and over and over again. So what you're seeing is that people start the process on your phone, and then they leave. And so one of our clients moved to PayPal as one of the solutions, and all of a sudden, day one, sales increased 17%. So we got to, as an industry, be making it easier for our clients, and so that's why I think the desktops are going away, and I think we need to be smarter about mobile.
Which I think also ties back into, I guess, Jack's, comment about we're on the cusp of. I would agree. I mean that is fulfilled by, digital wallets. I wouldn't say mobile, because really you should be accessing this through whatever aperture you've got. It could be, yes, probably is your phone. It could still be your desktop, could be your TV, could be your phone, could be, any variety of things, could be your watch, right? So the UX is absolutely critical in understanding that, the consumer. There's still those alternatives. Like I say, you've still got cards and cash and so on. So, you don't nail the UX with mobile. It's not as if, they have to use that channel. They'll default back to the wallet that they're going to have with them anyway for probably the next 20 years. So, it's fascinating in a lot of respects that you've got, this innovation happening in mobile, but it's still indexed to very analog systems. Particularly when it comes to sort of banking and payments. So, a good point. Okay, so let's look then at the consumer standpoint, because all of this is for nothing if you can't get consumers to buy in. So what would you consider the most significant hurdle to consumer adoption of mobile marketing? I'll start again with Kevin.
From my perspective, it's a consolidation of the marketplace. There's too many options, and the consumers don't know what to do. So, we talked about Google, we talked about Apple, we talked about Amazon, we talked about PayPal. I mean, how many of these are individuals going to sign up for to then buy on different sites? And so until the marketplace consolidates into one or two, consumers aren't, and it doesn't make any sense to have an online site, for example, have 15 different options. I mean, they really need to choose two different options. I mean, how often has anyone here purchased from Amazon, because they make it so easy. And the price is good, but they make it so easy that you automatically go to Amazon.
It's almost too easy to shop. I've bought, I've bought 20 cans of tuna fish online for no reason. It's like, it happens. I totally agree. Yeah. Let's look also then. So it's back to again the UX and again making that kind of death by 1,000 checkouts experience minimized.
I got an interesting point, which might be a question
yes.
in itself. There's a difference between, when you talk about mobile marketing in general, I think there's a difference between driving mobile payments and mobile commerce and mobile influence. So there's a great study by Deloitte, if you guys want to download it. It's called, it's something about mobile influence, and they basically said that 50% of transactions are influenced by the mobile phone, right? So I'm in the store and I'm texting my wife, should I get this one? Or I'm taking a picture, or I'm doing price check, or I'm comparing, I'm looking on Amazon, right? I'm showrooming all these trends, but I'm using my phone. And it's influencing my purchase decision.
I totally agree with that. We track, the consumer adoption of a whole variety of payment mechanisms. So we're looking at, again, cash, debit cards, credit cards, gift cards, stored value cards, checks still.
To conclude that, I think attribution's an issue for the mobile marketers, because you're not necessarily going to buy that product on the app. I think mobile's a phenomenal research tool, right? Consumers use it to figure stuff out, and then you go buy things in store. And when you think about retail, like mobile commerce is going to grow, it's going to have this hockey stick growth chart, everybody's going to love it, but it's still going to be small, right? Like these big, huge retailers, these big box, they need people in the store making purchases, or they're in trouble. And e-commerce is not going to save them. M-commerce is certainly not going to save them.
Well, sorry, go on.
No, to dovetail on that thought, that same Deloitte, part of the Deloitte study, as well as currently in the ecosystem of retail, 94%, I think someone said it yesterday, it's 94% of the business transaction is still brick and mortar.
Right.
And every retailer I speak to, not one of them is saying we're going to close stores and we're moving online 100%.
Right.
Their objective is how do they get those to how do they integrate those? And this notion of it's very difficult, while I agree it's easy with Amazon, it's still a cumbersome process to actually put in your credit card and all that kind of stuff and actually close the sale. And so how do you influence shoppers at the closest point of purchase inside a mall?
The point I was going to complete there was that, despite all the different payment mechanisms at the point of sale, and, despite the hockey stick growth in mobile, we do kind of a stacking bar chart, and mobile doesn't actually register for the next 5 years. It's so small, it's less than 1% of overall transaction volume. But to your point, that the influence of mobile is totally disproportionate. It's not, it's not a payment mechanism per se. A lot of people will clearly still, rely on the existing payment capabilities, but having that conduit that connects, online and offline while you're in, a physical location is massively influential.
So I think that to Kevin's point as well, it's about the single platforms, that shoppers aren't going to have a lot of different apps and all that. I think retailers are also, they're not going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 different platforms to send their messages, right? And so they're looking for the very few options, Wi-Fi being one of them, a single platform where they can send their message across different, in my view, different owners. They don't care who owns them all. They just care about where their location is. And so how do we develop single platforms for them to actually communicate and repurpose their content?
Okay, very good. Any comments or questions from the audience at this point? No, excellent.
I mean, so we used to work with GameStop, and one of the things I thought they did was interesting was that you could buy online, but they really wanted you to go to the store for two reasons. One is they wanted to be able to track what was happening online and sort of the crossover between online and store, but more importantly, when you're in a store, you're more likely to buy extra crap, right? So you're going through the checkout and you buy this, this, and this. If you're online, you just basically point, click, buy, done. You don't, then, oh yeah, I needed that. And you go home, you're like, why did I get that? And so that's the reason they did it. Wasn't because they could have made it easier by actually just having you go to the store, give your credit card, you're out of here because it's already been prepaid. They specifically didn't want to do that so you could buy more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. And again, to Alan's point, retailers are not going away. We're looking at, there's obviously big growth in e-commerce, but it's still going to be just 10% of overall transaction volume in 5 years from now. So it's not, 90% is still going to be in physical locations. Let's look also then at where we consider, if we look out into the future a little bit, let's look at sort of maybe the next 18 months, 2 years. Who are going to be the big winners and losers in this space at the moment? Start with Jack. You can't single out the people on the panel here.
Now it's Kevin there to win.
I was going to say Jack's the big winner.
Right.
I think, kind of going back to my first opening comment, I think Apple and Google are gonna win. They've got this incumbency advantage of being, having a presence on the handset with Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, and Apple Pay and Android Pay. I think that retailers, the Apple, obviously they're, you talked about the retailers have to cooperate, and we're seeing, I think pretty quick adoption of NFC readers at point of sale.
Yeah, I mean that goes with EMV effectively. If you upgrade to EMV, you've got an NFC terminal.
So I think everybody here knows this sort of EMV liability shift, October 15th. All these CIOs of the retailers are looking at trading up or upgrading their point of sale systems to be chip and pin compliant. Here's the deal with chip and pin. It's slow. There's some trials at Walmart right now in New York. You got to put your credit card in. You wait sort of 10 seconds for it to authenticate, and that creates lines, and that's not acceptable at retail, which is about high transaction and velocity. And so, with NFC sort of checking the box on the EMV, it's just a much more attractive.
I think that's absolutely true. I was in England last week, and sort of did a sort of survey of one, checking out kind of the chip and pin experience there, and it varies somewhere between like 4 and 10 seconds when you put the card in. It just kind of sits there, and you looking at the clerk feeling stupid. Right. So I think there's a real case, yes, for NFC there. I think there's also a case for the resurgence of contactless cards like we had 10 years ago. I think the dual interface card might make a bit of a comeback.
But so big winner.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be, the way you look at the express lane, with the diamond lane, or HOD lane, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be an Apple Pay lane. Right? And that's going to be like an express lane. And people are just, you're just going by and you're paying, and it's quick and easy. And Apple, will get some branding benefit from that.
Sure. Do you think, I completely agree with that. If you saw my introduction yesterday, I was signaling out a particular lady in front of me at a self-checkout line that went through an entire cart of groceries in front of me, and I took a picture because I was there for 20 minutes. But where was I going with this? I was distracted by this visual because it's so angry. Yes. So, I mean, do you think it's kind of game over then? It's effectively, Android and Apple, and there's no scope for any other wallets in the space? Or my hypothesis is we're going to see some fairly custom wallets or branded wallets
I don't
from
think private
retailers.
label branded wallets will be big, ever.
Not even bank ones?
Nope.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think it'll be a long tail. It'll be two big, players,
Yeah.
and then a long tail of all these retailers that spend a bunch of money on their app. It's like, hey, I got my coupons in my app, and we have our own wallet.
Right.
And it's like, why would I use that one retailer's app
Yeah.
when I got my Starbucks card and my
Yeah.
everything that I need. All my loyalty cards and coupons are in my Apple Wallet.
I tend to agree with you, by the way, it's just being kind of the devil's advocate.
Yeah,
But it's, I think, effectively your phone is a wallet. You don't need a wallet within a wallet,
Yeah.
right? So,
And if you want to do your own wallet, which is a fine
Right.
expenditure of tech resources at a big retailer that needs to be more cost
well, history has not been kind to companies that have done that.
Right. You just have to, then you have to do both. It's not either.
Yeah, okay. Alan, winners and losers.
Well, the losers are the retailers, actually, that haven't embraced technology. So, I don't know, has anyone been to Linens and things lately, or Montgomery Ward, or Borders, or GameStop? And these are companies that have been around that have really big platforms. Sears, I guess there's still a few of them still around there, that no longer exist because they lost the focus of what where the consumer is. And I think the winners at the end of the day are going to be the ones that have a maniacal focus around consumer and a shopper, and it makes it simple. So the whole notion that we're all going to have 4 or 5 different, 7 different apps on our phone for different retailers, your most loyal customers will take
Right.
in the very narrow sense of the word, and the rest of them will be gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already finding it personally. I'm steering myself to locations that have mobile loyalty and actually mobile payments. I've been using Google Wallet for quite a long time. So it is more convenient in some respects.
We look at Starbucks,
Yeah.
right? Everybody always talks about Starbucks. It's a little unfair because their, business per week is so much higher than like a big box like Sears or something like that. But what they've done really well is they have Wallet communicating with the app.
Sure.
And if you, their app, people, it's like 25% of their transactions are now
Right.
paid for by phone. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's a huge percent.
it is, and again, Starbucks is obviously the poster child of mobile payments, wallets, loyalty, whatever. But they have a very unique audience. I mean, what works for Starbucks doesn't necessarily work for Best Buy or even I'd say even Dunkin' Donuts, right? I mean, it's different types of people. There's Starbucks has, a lot of junkies, frankly. People who are habitually going back there for their fix of coffee, and it's a loyalty program. It's not really a payment program.
But they have higher growth right now from wallet payments than they do in app.
Right.
And that's a numbers, that's a numbers thing for sure. But still, when you get the Starbucks Pass and Passbook or Apple Wallet, it's location aware for your favorite. Just like when you get to the airport and your boarding pass, a little notification pops up on your lock screen. When you swipe that, up pops the boarding pass or up pops your Starbucks card.
Right.
So you don't have to put your password in. You don't have to go to the Starbucks app. You don't have to 4-tap deep in the Starbucks app. And so, apps are great for store locators and like how many calories are in my latte. But if you just want to pay and it's location aware, that's the convenience that the phone is then providing for the consumer. And that's what Google and Apple have really thought through, is how do we make this super simple so that there's something that knows you're in, knows you're at Chipotle or
Right.
Starbucks, doesn't have to be a Starbucks. And you just swipe and pay.
I've got to say, I mean, I'm looking forward to, I think Android Pay, the handicap right now with Google Wallet, and it's really the handicap from pretty much any other wallet that's not integrated in at a kind of software level, is, you can't just tap it and it wakes up. You had to kind of open the app and then put in a PIN. So it's extra steps in the process that can be removed, but
That's a UI thing, and that'll...
It's exactly, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, once it comes into the OS, when it's integrated at that level, that makes a big difference. And that's back to Kevin's point about it's all about the UX. It's really, consumer adoption. Because people already have. I mean, like I say, you can have a wallet with you anyway. It's not inconvenient to pay with a credit card or debit card. You just swipe it and it's done. Typically, there's signature waiver if it's a small value transaction. So that's what you're up against.
It's the audience, right? So if our age and older probably isn't going to adopt this as much as sort of the young, younger. I mean, I have an 18-year-old and 20-year-old who just live with their phone, and that's
Right.
They couldn't imagine like cash. I think they don't really know what cash is unless they see it on the dresser.
Yeah. Well, again, there's a colleague or ex-colleague of mine, Ron Shevlin, he talks about the Venmo line, which is around about 28 years of age. And below that, that's what you used to pay. And in fact, you know, the millennial generation will probably see a future very soon that has no point of sale whatsoever. You know, to Jack's point, you'll have a fast lane where effectively, you know, with the capabilities we're seeing with beacons and so on, would mean that you pay the moment, or you've opened the checkout process the moment you go in the store. So that's where we're going with that. But again, I mean, winners and losers from your perspective there.
Consumers.
Consumers.
From the winner's perspective, consumers are going to, and in 18 months from now, they're going to be a much happier place than they are today. I mean, because, you know, as you mentioned, you know, if the retailers don't provide the experience that consumers want, they'll go somewhere else, and that retailer will disappear.
Right.
And the amount of new retailers that are disappearing is astronomical because they're not keeping up to what consumers want. You know, from my perspective, the losers are sort of the credit card companies. I mean, you're not.
Are you sure?
Well,
Because I've not found a mobile payment initiative yet that doesn't rely on existing payment rails. That's credit cards or debit card or ACH.
maybe I would say it's sort of the banks.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, the bank issuers are the ones going to lose because I don't really need to have my PNC credit card anymore. I can just do it through all these things we're talking about.
But it still defaults back to a credit card on the back end of that.
And I'm totally
pretty
wrong.
much. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway. Any questions from the audience? We've got a few more minutes.
Come on.
Yes, that man.
I mean, one of the major drivers for mobile lately for a lot of retailers is being able to take their existing or future planned loyalty programs and put that into the mobile environment, and then also pair that with being able to make purchases for goods. And where I think where you see a loss with the Apple wallets and the Google wallets is the lack of control over the experience and the lack of integration of the loyalty programs. Is that something you see changing over time? Because, you know, the recent announcements from Apple, they want to pre-package a loyalty program that the retailer can buy, but they haven't really expressed any interest in supporting loyalty that's pre-existing from a retailer. Is there a direction, is that a shift you see happening? Or is it, from the retailer perspective, they either get payment out of the wallet and they can do loyalty totally separate? Or are they going to converge?
So that's exactly what our platform, that's what we do. Like, we help loyalty, we help retailers take their loyalty programs and put them into wallet. And I think it's a better place for them. Like, I don't carry any physical loyalty cards with me, but if I put my loyalty card into my mobile wallet, and it could, you know, there's the Dunkin' card and the Starbucks card, but if I do it with, you know, like a Sears Shop Your Way rewards card, which we do for the Shop Your Way program, it's then with me, it's location aware. We're doing really sophisticated programs with Shop Your Way where we're inserting surprise points, which are loyalty points, on a Friday, because we know that you're researching refrigerators or washers and dryers. We put those points in, which is an incentive to come into Sears and make a big purchase over the weekend. And on Sunday, if you don't do that, we take those points back out, right? So that's a really sophisticated example of loyalty and complex sort of targeting and segmentation done in a mobile environment. But I think you have to be in the wallet. There's not really, like, we just did a program that was national with Chipotle, which was enormous, right? And I think we're going to need about 10 of those before everybody realizes, okay, this is really, you know, substantial and special. But we drove millions of offers into the mobile wallet, and the redemption at point of sale with Chipotle was absurd. They mentioned it on their earnings call. I mean, it was just a phenomenal program.
Good. Question from this lady.
On their
Private label credit card?
The lady asked, how do you see retailers' private label playing into this?
I don't know.
So,
Go ahead.
I think the same thing, you know, the loyalty, the branded, I guess Alliance Data spoke a little bit about it yesterday, the branded credit cards. Those are for your most loyal customers, right? And you can take your top 2% or 5%, even 10%. And so every retailer would like to get those customers, there's two parts, right? There's acquire shoppers, new shoppers, and then those customers that are their best customers, right? Continue to reward them with loyalty programs and credit cards and all that. And I think they're recognizing here there's value in it because they create they have this database and they now own that information. The question is, what do you do with it? How many times do you communicate to the same shopper over and over and over again? But it doesn't allow you to acquire customers. So I think it's a two-track plan. And yes, obviously, you'd rather move those people, any customer, into your loyalty program. I mean, it reminds me of the idea of how to touch customers at different points. When I flew here Don struck me the other day as I was flying from Southwest from LA the other day to Chicago, and so I'm watching 60 Minutes on my iPad, right? And then I go home and I do Netflix, and then I look at I have HBO, and then I still have television, and I still go to the theater on Saturday night. And so I'm consuming media at a lot of different platforms, and I don't really think about it, right? I just want it where it's convenient at the time. And I think it's the same thing for the retailers. They've got to start thinking about where does the consumer want to engage with them. Every consumer doesn't want to sign up for a loyalty program to save 10%. I'm spending $50 and I'm going to save $5, and then you're going to blast me with emails and text messages all day long. There's a value exchange that's just not going to work. It just seems to me. So I don't know where that credit card, I think it has value, but I think it's only for the most loyal customers.
Jack.
Comment on this. So I think that there's a window in the next 18 months where you have to get your private label credit card into my wallet. Basically, I'm not going to I only have 2 credit cards. I have a personal one and a business one because I don't want to carry a bunch in my wallet. I treasure my really thin, small wallet. But I'll put, you probably can't see this, I'll put 100 things into my digital wallet because it doesn't take storage, right? And so I think there's a little bit of a race right now to make sure that you get preferred tender inside the wallet, because somebody that has 8 credit cards, they're not going to put all 8 credit cards into their mobile wallet. They're going to put 1 or 2 of the primary cards. And so if your private label credit card for your retail brand isn't one of those, you're not going to be getting those mobile transactions. And if I'm loading offers and loyalty cards into my phone that are triggering location-aware reminders that I've got a percentage off in this retailer and it's a coupon, well, that better be next to the form of payment that you want me to use. Otherwise, you're missing that opportunity too. So we actually just launched with JCPenney, helping their private label credit card get into Google and Apple.
I think, to that point, I think, it will mimic your physical wallet and the characteristics around that. And people do triage, they will find the right card for the right situation. That would also apply to private label cards, I thought. Quick question from the front here.
2 quick things that, Alan, first of all, a big merchant, Neiman Marcus, for example, up to 60% of their volume comes from private label cards, and the average merchant is 30 to 40% that's using an Alliance Data merchant or a card. That's a lot more than just their very prime customers, the top 2 or 5%. That is 20 or 30 or 40% of their customers are actually using private label, which does probably make it a little bit more important than you're thinking at this moment.
So I was also addressing the folks in the mall, right? So we take the folks that are in the mall, take a typical mall that has 10 or 15 million people a year, and then you talk about those folks that are in the mall that have their credit card, a private label card. It's a relatively small percentage. It's even less than that. And that's the new acquisition part that's talking about.
The other thing I'll say is, Jack, we're thinking like men rather than like women. Private label is predominantly a female thing. And so that makes a big difference in usage. A woman who wants to use Victoria's Secret to pick a Alliance Data client.
There, you're thinking like a man again.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, right.
He can't help it, clearly.
But Blade Bryant or Creative Barrel was here yesterday on a panel and things like that. They may look at it differently because of all the special offers that you're engaging for JCPenney and things like that. And they may keep it on as their second or third choice. And since my wallet doesn't get any thicker, no matter how many cards are in it,
I wasn't going to use this as an example, but you're the data guy.
Yeah.
Do women have exponentially more credit cards in their wallets than men?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's even more important for the private label companies that have women as customers to get those, get that as preferred tender in their mobile wallet.
Oh, agreed, totally agree.
That's a very big phone you got, Larry.
Yeah, no, it's a 6 plus.
Anyway, one final question from anybody? Man at the very back there.
So, more of a marketing question. So I read yesterday that Google is going to be changing their algorithm again to punish sites that do in-app advertising to mobile users, but they're not going to allow that anymore. Just, quickly from the panel, how do you think that's going to affect, mobile payment adoption, among users, because it's going to hinder the app developers' ability to market their product. At the same same time, what can people do to navigate that landscape, to get around what it is that Google's doing to still be successful with their digital marketing and mobile advertising?
Anyone want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that first.
Sure.
Or maybe only. The biggest thing that people have and the biggest problem with apps is that everyone downloads an app and they never use it again.
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to those who are developing the app is to make it so useful. Again, we use Starbucks as the example. It's so useful that you must use the app. Otherwise, it's a one and done, and regardless of how you advertise your app, you're never going to get used. So that's the biggest sort of thing takeaway is just make the app like something that's part of someone's day and life. Otherwise, there's nothing that anyone can do to save that app.
So I think, to dovetail on that, I think the notion of downloading, I'm talking about, again, merchant apps, how many will I download on my phone? It's why, we take a view that we use a Wi-Fi network with an app that's a browser-based app. So I don't have to download anything. It's hyper-local because I authenticate on a Wi-Fi network. And so the retailer can communicate to that shopper in that mall without them downloading an app. It's an automatic redirect. And so it cuts out that Google part challenge, if you will, of the native app and how they advertise. So it's a one-to-one communication with the shopper who is pulling information by store, by department, or by category they're looking for, and they're using another platform, it's a Wi-Fi network, that they eliminate that, the Google part of that. And that's actually where we see the value.
Which I think is great because if you're not providing value at that instant, no one wants you to bother them.
Right.
Okay, great. I'll have to finish up at this point. I think it's been actually a very fascinating conversation. Really enjoyed the panel here. So Jack, Alan, Kevin, thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.